never happen to anyone else because indicated I'm nowhere near done. In breaking news from you. Sparks, widely known from the Discovery Channel series Diesel Brothers, was arrested Tuesday morning in Salt Lake City. According to court records, Sparks was taken into custody by U.S. Marshals after a federal judge
All right, my friends, it's time to set the record straight once and for all. Yes, I was arrested and just spent 3 days locked up in solitary confinement at a maximum security wing of the Salt Lake County Jail. But this wasn't criminal. I wasn't even charged with a crime, and I didn't do anything illegal. For several years, I've kept fairly quiet about our lawsuit with a group of environmentalist doctors that started way back in January of 2017, because I've been respecting the court process and just kept my head down, doing my part to get this resolved. But the group suing me, well, they finally crossed the line. And it's time for me to speak out after almost 9 years of being damn near silent on this matter. One thing that we're going to do throughout this video is provide receipts. I don't want you guys to just sit here and listen to me talk and have to take my word for it. Instead, what I decided to do is throw up screenshots, court documents, basically anything that you can see and reference to understand that what I'm telling you actually happened. Kind of pulling back the curtain and giving you everything so there's no doubt as to whether or not this really happened. Guys, real quick, before we get further into the story, because it's a hell of a story, it's going to take a minute, I want to acknowledge something that I promised you a couple months back. I told you near the end of July that we were having a huge liquidation sale so that I can make room for new projects, new ventures. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to make those announcements just yet because of things that have been happening, including some of what I'm about to share with you in this video. But I want to let you know that I haven't forgotten about you, and I fully intend to follow through with making those huge, awesome, and exciting announcements that are huge, changes for me. They're big steps, big advancements in my career, and they're going to change everything about what I do. So I want you to know that I'm not ignoring it, I'm not avoiding it. It's something that I'm really anxious and excited to talk to you about. I just have to wait for the time to be right, and I believe that time is coming very soon once we get this whole legal issue put to bed. Now, let's get back to this absolute chaotic mess of a lawsuit that we've been dealing with for almost 9 years. All right, so I just got released from Salt Lake County Jail, which just so happens to be one of the top 5 safest jails in the world, which also means it's one of the top 5 most secure. Now, in order to keep me safe in there and to keep me away from a population of people who may just want to be friends or fans or potentially do harm to me, they had to protect their custody. That means that I was in solitary confinement, locked in a cell all by myself with the opportunity to get out for 1 hour every other day. I'm telling you right now, that was the most miserable experience of my life. And I'm also going to tell you that to those of you, a few of you who have actually done real jail or prison time, whether it be days, weeks, months, or even years, I've got a whole new level of respect for you. 2 days is nothing compared to what some of you have been through, but it was more than I ever care to experience again. Now let me tell you guys about the week that I was having. On Monday, I was in Washington, D.C. to speak at a conference. On Tuesday, I was scheduled to be at the One Utah Summit. Now, what the One Utah Summit is, it's a giant conference for the state of Utah where state leaders and agencies and all sorts of people get together and figure out a way to obviously make the state better. And they invited me to come speak on the topic of how private organizations can work hand in hand with state and local agencies to do good for the public, aka search and rescue, cleaning up public lands, all the stuff that we love to do for our state. I was not getting paid to speak at this event. It wasn't convenient for my schedule. Like I said, I'd be traveling all week. On Wednesday, I was scheduled to be in Kentucky doing an appearance for Hitachi Utility Expo. On Thursday, I was scheduled to be back home. Well, after getting home from Washington, D.C. on Monday night, I got a few hours of sleep, and I was up again the next morning on Tuesday at 4 a.m. to head down to the airport to jump on a flight to Southern Utah for the Utah Conference. Well, as soon as we got to the airport, rolled in, jumped out of the car, getting ready to go board the jet. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 3 or 4 trucks full of U.S. Marshals come rolling in, lights on, guns drawn, and fully prepared to take me into custody. And honestly, at first, I thought it was a joke. I thought I was getting punked because it's happened before. We have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and they sometimes do that. They roll up on their lights and they play a joke on us. And so I was laughing until they came up and handcuffed me. And they threw me in the back of their truck and they drove me to the Salt Lake County jail. And the entire time on our way to the jail, they were apologizing. They felt terrible. They knew that me getting arrested was the most absurd thing possible because they know I'm not a criminal and they know I didn't break any laws. And that was a common theme throughout my entire experience in jail, from the guards to the management to the staff to the other inmates. Everyone knows my story, and they all know that I'm far from a criminal and I did not deserve to be locked up in chains and shackles and thrown into a cell by myself with some of the worst of the worst. Yep. You see, this was a civil case, one that's been dragging on for almost 9 years. And yesterday, before we all left a hearing, the judge himself told everyone this should have never happened. I walked in with wrist and ankle cuffs and walked out vindicated. But this story goes way beyond me, because what's happening here exposes a broken system that can be used to punish people even when they've done almost everything right. This is no attack on the judge or the court, who I actually believe is a brilliant and well-reasoned man that does his best with the information presented to him. But that's the problem. This is a story about bad actors, the UPHE and its lawyers, and bad law. Now let's go to the beginning. This all started back in 2017 when I and a handful of my companies got sued by a group called Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, or UPHE. So you need to understand that the UPHE is made up of a bunch of doctors who are also activists and environmentalists. The group is led by a doctor named Brian Monk. He is a very passionate man about the environment, and he is constantly out at rallies and protests and different events. On one hand, I can respect he wants the environment to be better and cleaner, just like all of us. But on the other hand, unfortunately, I cannot respect the way that he's gone about trying to enforce this. But the way they do this is they use an attorney. And they use the same attorney, or at least they have for a very long time, named Reed Zars from Laramie, Wyoming. Reed's Reed. That's all I can say about it. Reed doesn't like me very much, and we've had just a real wild relationship over the past 9 years, as he's been trying really hard to basically destroy my life. Now, you need to understand that Reed essentially built this lawsuit off of social media. He would sit there and watch social media, he would watch our TV show Diesel Brothers, and pretty much anywhere else that he could find me, and he would basically take what he found there and use it in his court case against me. Years ago, I put up a picture of a really cool house that I liked. Wasn't mine, didn't own it, had nothing to do with it. On the stand, he said, "Whose house is this? Where'd you get the money to pay for it? And how come we didn't know about it?" And I was like, "It's not mine. It's just a post that I made." And that was a common theme throughout this whole lawsuit. So one of the funniest stories along this whole journey was when Reed decided that I post on Facebook, so I must get paid by Facebook. He wanted to get access to that money that they were paying me, which they weren't. And so he called Meta and basically said, "Hey, I'm an attorney. I want to garnish this account. You need to send all his money to me." And they're like, "Sir, no. Like, first of all, that's not how this works. Second of all, he's not in our system. Third of all, we're not paying him. Fourth of all, we can't give you any more information." He took a trip down to Meta headquarters, and in a court filing, which I'll show you proof of right here, he documents exactly what he did on this trip. He went to Meta. He tried to get in. He knocked on all the doors were all locked. So in this court briefing explaining his trip, he says, "I waited around outside, couldn't get in, and then I strategically timed my entrance into the building at the same time as the exit of an employee, AKA he snuck in. Somebody opened the door and he found his way in. Went to the front desk and said, 'I'm here to collect Dave Sparks' money. I need you to provide me with all this information, blah, blah, blah.'" And they're like, "Sir, no." And even if I was in their system getting paid, that's not how it works. They weren't going to do it. And then he goes in, further into this brief, and he says, "It was at that point that I was then escorted out of the facility by 3 security guards, but not Facebook offered him an opportunity." I really wish he would have done this, or I wish I had the picture, but they offered him the opportunity to take a selfie in front of the Facebook sign. He included all of this in his court brief that he submitted.
All right, decals are done for one time. I go pick it up so we make sure that it all fits and matches. I can actually put this phone back on the charger.